While working on the queries, it is helpful to have this diagram open so that we can refer to it as needed. To run a query, you need to go to the database name, right-click on it. So I'm clicking on Blue Ridge University, not one of the tables, just the database, and then say New Query. This will open a new window for you to type and run your queries. Before we go there, let's go back to the instructions and see what it is asking us to do. So the instruction asks us to create a new Word document with the name last name underscore first name underscore blueridgeu.docx, and we will use this to save our query responses. So I created the Word document and named it as my last name first name Blue Ridge University. I have saved it under my documents. You can save your file where you can access it. So now the query results. I'm going to paste number 1 query results here, and I'll go on and do number 2 query results. So I'll be pasting all the query results here. Okay. For now, I'm minimizing this document. Let's go to read some of the questions we have. So now you need to run a query. To answer the question says how many records are in the fact student grades table. Okay. So very quickly, I know as soon as somebody says how many, I know I need to use a count function. So by the way, I have given you the query here, but you will not be able to copy paste because this is an image. So you have to actually type the query. So let's see. You can open your instruction sheet on the side. I have mine there. So earlier I asked you to open, right click and do new query. If you have it already open, well and good. If not, you can open a new window by new query. Here's my window. So that's where I can go ahead and start running my queries. The one thing that I would do very quickly is start all the queries with a comment. And to comment, I do dash dash, and I would type this as my query 1. So any statement that you start with dash dash is considered a comment. So I go ahead and type select count, and I'm counting column course grade as, I want to give it a different name as course grade. In course grade, I can either use a single quote or I can use a double quote. So whatever I choose to use, I need to use it on both sides. From which table? From the fact student grades table. And then I say go, which will let me execute the query. So once you have that, you can select this and hit execute. You will see at the bottom the query is executed and it says course grade, and what is the count? 153. So what I want you to do is go ahead, take this screenshot or take a snip of it and then place it in your Word file. To do a snapshot, you can go to the bottom and type the word snipping tool. You will get it. Once a snipping tool is open, you can hit new and then take a little snippet of this. Now go to your Word file and paste those results. So that's your output for the first query. I would also like to point out that if you needed help while typing, you will also be able to see the table name and the column names. So if you go to whichever table you want to, I'm going to fact student grades, and you can see the columns and expand it. It will show you what all columns are in that table. You can also see the same thing in the diagram that you had open earlier. So for the fact student grade, these are all the columns that there are. So now let's go back and do some more. The next query. So I'll hit enter. Start with a comment, call it query 2, and then let's see what this next query is asking us to do. It says, what time span in periods are the grades recorded? For reference, semester IDs correspond as 01 for spring, 5 for summer, 8 for fall. And here you have been given a sample code. You need to complete it. See how min, and there is a blank where you need to enter a column name. And for max also, you have a blank. You need to enter a column name here. So if you wanted, you don't have to type it, just watch. If you wanted to see all the data in a table, you could do select star from table name. In this case, we want dim period. So just to show you what the data is going to look like. And next line, I'm going to type go, hit select this and execute. And you can see in the results right here that this is the content of our table. So it has semester ID, year ID, and period ID. So period ID is basically a combination of semester ID as well as year ID. Quickly, you can say that instead of counting minimum semester ID, minimum year ID, if I wanted to know what's the first period in our data set, I probably want the answer to be semester 1, 2018. So what's one column that gives us both information? It's period ID. So it's 2008-01. What's the highest or the latest semester that we have in our data set? 2021. So first semester in 2020. So again, if I'm looking at period ID, I would look here and say 2020-01. If I could just get this field, it will give me the required information. So going back up here, I did not need this for the query. That was just to show you. So let's go ahead to our instruction sheet and type what they asked us to. So going back to the instruction sheet, we have to type select min of some column, and we just discussed what column should it be, period ID as min, and comma max of period ID as max from dim period. So let's go ahead and do that. Select min of period ID, and the reason I'll show you what happens if I don't do this, comma max of period ID from dim period. Go. Okay. Let's execute this without the word as min as max and see what happens. So let's execute this. See, it says no column name. So the column name that is min period ID is not appearing. So I want to give it a column name. That's why right after min period ID, I would say as and give it a name or an alias. To give the alias name, I'm going to start single quotes as min, quotes closed. Same thing with the max, as quotes max, quotes closed. And here you can see we could have used single quotes or double quotes, but whatever you choose, stick with that. Now I'll go ahead and run the same thing again and watch what happens. This time my columns or the results in the columns do have a name, min and max. That's why we are using as to give the columns a name. So this right here is the answer to your second query. Again, go ahead and take a snapshot and put that snippet into your Word file. For that, I'll go to my snipping tool, hit new, and then take a little snippet of the results and put that in my Word file as query result 2. Let's look at the next question. So it says, what the professors that are listed in the fact student grades table, list their names, not their IDs, only once in your results. So we need to have names of faculty who are listed in the fact student grades table. So let's go again, and this time again I'm going to show you all the data from the facts grade table. So this is select star from fact student grades table. Go. I'm going to select this statement, just this one, and execute. And let's look at the results. So in the results, you don't have to do it. We are doing this query just to see what is the data there, so we understand why we are doing query 3 the way we are doing it. So you will see it has student ID, section ID, prof ID, period ID, course grade, numeric grade. So it does only have prof ID, it does not have the prof's name in this table. So if I were to just query the fact student grades table, I am only going to get professor's ID and not their names. So how do we get professors' names? You see dim professor and fact student grades. These two tables are related. The common field is professor ID in the fact student grades, the one that we just saw, is the primary key of the dim professor table. And dim professor table also has professor names. So now if we had a way to match up data from these two, then we can get professor ID from fact student grade and then match it up with the professor ID on dim professor table and also give the professor names from here. That's what we are going to do. And the way we do this is called as joining of the tables. To do this, I'm going to start with select. Then I type the keyword distinct. The keyword distinct will make sure that we have unique professor names appear. So every professor name will appear only once in my results. From which table? Fact student grades table. But the name of this table is so long. So for future users, I am giving it a name G. To give an alias name, you just do space and G. Since we are using more than one tables here, I would use join. So I'm going to join the fact student grades table with the dim professor table. So join the second table name. Once again, this table name is big, so it's better to use an alias. So I say dim professor space P on. Now I'm going to specify my joining condition with the keyword on. And the joining condition was that primary key of the first table equals the foreign key in the second table. So I'm saying G dot professor ID. So foreign key equals P dot professor ID. It means my primary key. Foreign key equals primary key. It does not matter if you start with P dot professor ID or G dot professor ID. It's the same. So now I'll go ahead and do go and execute this statement. A couple things I want you to note here is that we said select distinct because we want the professor names only to appear once. And then we use two aliases for these two tables. In the from clause, we said fact student grades G, and we said the name for dim professor, the alias is going to be P. And once we have declared these alias, in the join condition, we are using G instead of fact student grades and P instead of dim professor. So let's go ahead, run this. And you will see here we have our results. Because we use distinct, we only have every professor name once. So go ahead once again, take this as your output. Take a little snippet of it and you can go paste this in your Word file. Just to let you know, you don't have to do it. I'm going to show you what would happen if you removed the keyword distinct. You have already completed query 3. What I'm going to do is take the keyword distinct out and just try to show you what would the result be. Before we did that, with the keyword distinct in there, you will see you have 11 rows of data, so 11 different professors. I just took the keyword distinct out. Now I'm going to rerun this query and now see how every professor's name is written multiple times. And you have a lot more rows. So that's what the keyword distinct does. So that completes query number 3. We'll do more queries in the next video.